Hey there. Thank you for joining me, Stanley, on the Saturday. Um, the governor just recently announced a plan to get the state of Indiana reopened again, called Back on Track Indiana. And I'm hearing a lot of people talking about um, this opportunity to return to what we understood as normal. And I understand that. I completely understand why we would want to return to something that feels normal. We want to get back to what feels comfortable. We don't like the disruption, and we want to fix that disruption that happened in our lives. But one thing that the coronavirus has demonstrated is that a lot of the things that we were doing before, they don't really work. They were working for us for the time, but there are problems that were present that we didn't see, that were exposed because of the pressure that the coronavirus pandemic caused. Some of these are ways of doing business. We are now seeing who the essential workers are. We're seeing just how vital our healthcare system is, and the ways that our healthcare system wasn't working. We are seeing the way that the delivery needed to adapt. We're seeing the way that our modes of communication in some ways were lacking. They caught up quickly, but a lot of them were somewhat lacking. We're seeing just how vulnerable we were. We can see some of the things that failed, and now we're in some ways hoping to get back to the way that things were, because it's easier to just go back to the way that things were than to try to do something new. The way that things were, we could say that we wanted certain things to happen in schools and we didn't like how they happened, but now a lot of parents like myself are trying to do some of the teaching and trying to take care of some things. And a lot of the parents who were saying all the things they wanted done in schools, now we've had that opportunity for the last month or two. And I know for a fact that I haven't done all that much extra stuff other than trying to get through the coursework that my girls had. There are so many things that could have happened during this time that probably haven't. We now have an opportunity to see what things need to be strengthened. We've gained some distance from where things were. We've gained some time to examine that. Now we have an opportunity to say, how can we change things for the better? It was an opportunity that a lot of people talked about when everything started kicking off, but the stress of the crisis moment meant that a lot of us really weren't going to be able to do that. But now it looks like the moment is resolving. Yeah, in a lot of ways, the moment is probably going to resolve soon. Either we're going to enter back into a quarantine, or things are going to get better. We're going to be able to reopen, and things will steadily improve. But now we have an opportunity to not just go to the way that things were. Because when we go to the way that things were, we're setting us up to experience this same thing again. No, now we have an opportunity to see the way that things could change, to see some things that we could do better, and take steps toward that. There are a lot of churches, including the two that I pastor, who weren't live streaming church services before this. Now there's a lot of very valuable things that have come from the fact that we've had to live stream our services. We can make that adjustment. A number of us have had to be a lot more intentional about staying in contact with other people. We can make that adjustment. Maybe you've been at home with family, with loved ones, and it's been absolutely driving you nuts. Well, maybe there's something you've needed. Maybe there are practices that you've needed to develop. We can start trying to make that adjustment. Maybe the crazy, fast-paced way that things were before all of this happened just wasn't working for you, and now all that's been disrupted, and you're kind of liking the slower pace that things are now. We can start doing things to make that adjustment. In the Gospel of Isaiah, there's a famous passage that gets used all over the place, where God says to Isaiah, I am doing a new thing. Can't you see it? And a lot of times, that statement is taken just as that little statement, and it's just like, oh yeah, God's going to do something new. It's going to be completely different. We're not going to be able to recognize it. That's not quite what Isaiah says in that passage. Isaiah goes through the things that God did before. How God made a way through the waters. God led them through the Red Sea, led them through the Jordan River. He made a way through the waters. Now he's putting water in the desert. And when you read that passage in context, it's like, yeah, God's doing a new thing. He's doing, in a lot of ways, the same thing in a brand new context. He's adapting what he is doing to meet the needs of the current time. Isn't that exactly what we should be doing? Saying, there are things that I need to change that are probably going to be a lot like things I did before. Maybe there are businesses now that are going to be like, you know what? We can handle a lot of things remotely. We can allow people to work from home more often. And that would be fine. And that would be a great way of doing that. There are churches that are going to say, hey, we might need to add a live stream service. You know, it could be helpful for our members who aren't able to be at church every week. It could be helpful for, if we ever have to cancel, we can pre-record a service just in case. I mean, there are all sorts of things that churches can look at doing now that can be super helpful. It's kind of doing the same thing, but doing it in a new way. Churches can say, hey, here are things that we should have done, that we haven't been doing. Let's do a new thing. Businesses can do that. Us as individuals can do that. We could say, hey, I've really needed a better prayer habit, and it has cost me during this quarantine, but now, as things start to build up, I might have a bit of room to try to add in a better prayer habit, or a better scripture reading devotional habit, or saying, you know, I need a little bit of time alone and in quiet. I'm going to develop a practice of meditation, or maybe exercise, better eating habits. Some of these small differences that we can make now. Because in a lot of ways, the best way to describe what will come in the weeks and the months ahead isn't a return back to normal, but it's to move forward into a new normal. That language is being used a lot, and in some ways, it is difficult because we hear normal and we think of what was. But if we can move forward into a new normal, seeing the things, taking the lessons that we just learned that are behind us, and moving forward into something new and different that answers the questions we just got out of, but establishes a sense of normal again. I think that's what God would want from us. Let's adapt to the current circumstance. Let's see what God's doing in our midst. Because God is doing something. God is still at work. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. God's never changed. God never will change. But we do change. And I think now we have an opportunity to change for the better. So let's continue to have faith that God will be who God is, and let's try to meet God in some extremely helpful ways in the new normal that we're getting ready to establish. Thank you so much for joining with me. God bless you all. Goodbye.